Hiya! Welcome to the Emma Chisit channel. And for those of you who haven't figured it out yet, Emma Chisit is how much is it in the British Essex accent. And we'll get to that. I've been asked by friends to document my journey into drag because evidently it's fairly rare for a straight guy to want to do drag. And I guess that's true. And what happened to me was in less than 36 hours, I went from not wanting to do drag under any circumstances whatsoever to needing to do it. And that's what this first video that I'm doing on the Emma Chisit channel is going to be about. I have been on stage most of my adult life in one way or another. And a couple of years ago, I decided I was done with that. I was not going to get on stage anymore. I was not going to stand in front of a camera. I was not going to do any of that. And it was actually like a burden was off my shoulders at that time. It was really a release. It was a surprisingly good feeling. So when I started getting into the drag scene here in Berlin, getting to know people, a lot of people knew I'd been on stage. A lot of people said that maybe you should try drag, and I was like, yeah, maybe, maybe not. But then again, I promised never to be on stage anymore. And it's a decision that I was happy with. So I decided maybe I can do it. Maybe I can get in drag to DJ or something, because I've also been a DJ. I was a DJ in the 90s. So I thought, yeah, maybe not. We'll see. Maybe I'll go to a party in drag. And let me first explain. I've been into drag most of my adult life, I think, in one way or another. Like as an art form, I've always enjoyed it. Long before RuPaul's Drag Race, and that's not to brag and be like, I was into it before it was hip. But this is true. Back in the 90s, when my wife and I lived in Washington, D.C., we would go to a local cafe where the drag show was basically just somebody lip-syncing while walking along the bar. There was no stage. So it's been something that I've admired for a long time, and I've always had an affinity for gay culture per se. I've always been. My wife says I'm flaming hetero, as in I'm basically, and I often say, you know, I'm as gay as you can be, except I don't want to fuck dudes. That's all. So there is kind of a setup for all this and why this would even happen at all. But like I said, on January 9th, which was my 52nd birthday, I was at Monster Ronson's here in Berlin, watching the House of Presents show, and was kind of called out as, you should get on stage. And I was like, absolutely not, and completely forget that, it's never gonna happen. The day after, I went to see a performance by a friend of mine. He did a short little monologue about what it's like to be on stage as a drag queen and how it has changed his life. And I spoke to him afterwards, and he said, well, that was just really a test to see if I can be on stage as myself. And that's when I realized I have never been on stage as anything but myself. I've done stand-up comedy, I've been in bands, but it's always been me there on stage. And if I go on stage as someone else, then I wouldn't really be going back on my promise. And it's not just that it's a promise, it's also that I don't think that I go back on the spirit of the promise that I made to myself. I don't think I would feel bad about going on stage as someone else. So, all right, well, so that had opened kind of a door, and I went to bed that night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Thursday morning, January 11th, I wake up, and I'm kind of half awake, and I start thinking, you know, well, if I were to go on stage, who would I go on stage as? And it's like, well, I can do a British Essex accent. It's pretty much the only accent I can do in English without too much hesitation, except this American one, which is fake, by the way, because I'm not American, I'm Swedish. Well, Swedish-Austrian, sort of American. But yeah, no, this is not my natural accent. It's something I decided on, something I chose because I married an American, I lived in America, and it felt stupid to kind of vacillate between different accents. I used to do that. I would be standing next to a Brit and an American, and it would just fuck with my head. But it's been strictly American ever since. But so I was like, okay, I can do an Essex accent. I had an accent, which was this. I spoke in this kind of accent, and I thought, well, it's sort of London, isn't it? And somebody said, no, that's not London, that's Essex, John. John, by the way, is my name. I don't think I said that. Anyway, so I decided to, okay, she's an Essex girl. And so I started YouTubing in bed on my iPad the Essex accent. And in there was this girl talking about like various phrases you say in Essex. And one of them is, how much is it? How much is it? Emma Chisit. And I'm like, that's the name right there. And at that point, it just went, bam, I gotta do this. And like I said, it's less than 36 hours. I went from absolutely not to there is no option. So that's how Emma Chisit was born. And that's why this channel exists. And that's why I'm going to keep making videos about, well, that's not the reason I'm making, the reason I'm making videos about this is because so many of my friends have said, you know, as a straight guy, it's got to be different than when a gay guy wants to do drag. I guess it is, and I will try to talk about that and explore that a little bit more in other videos. There is this thing called autogynephilia, which is a bullshit psychological term, and I'll get to that in probably the next video. But until then, I should have some sort of like sign-off phrase, I guess, be good to yourself, take care, all that sort of stuff. Something like that. Until next time.